Welcome to Thursday, the 12th day of May, 2022. Your Day Weather Podcast being brought to you by Cowboy State News Daily. Check them out at cowboystatenewsdaily.com, Wyoming's news authority. Also check them out on their Facebook page. Well, more rain for the northern areas, as we stated yesterday. That's where it's going to go. Montana, northern Wyoming, the Dakotas, parts of Idaho, the Pacific Northwest, then into the upper plain states are going to see showers and thunderstorms today through early Friday. Going to have some severe weather in the northern plains. We're also going to see scattered showers and thunderstorms elsewhere. So once you get out of the northern areas, we're going to have scattered showers and thunderstorms. And yeah, I hate to say it, the W word again is going to rear its ugly head in some areas, especially later today and tonight. Moderating conditions over the weekend with a few isolated showers. As we told you yesterday, we think it's going to be a decent weekend. Will it be perfect? No, but a decent weekend coming up. Warmer next week. It's going to really feel like spring. The first half of next week, we're going to see a lot of 70s, some 80s, but we're also going to see some afternoon and evening thunderstorms out on the plains. And that'll be good news for some. As we get into next week, the heating from the daytime and then a little bit of moisture will lead to those afternoon and evening storms. Now, we're hoping by the end of next week to have better chances of rain over a more widespread area and maybe into parts of Colorado, parts of Kansas, maybe extreme northern New Mexico. There could be a front coming in late next week into the start of next weekend that could do that, bring a bit of a better chance of precipitation to the region. Today, you see the upper level low right here over northeastern Utah. This system is going to race, and I mean race this way very quickly. So this is as of early this morning. Look what happens when we go forward right here. This is by tomorrow morning. So in 24 hours, this system goes this distance right here. So it's a quick mover. And it's already producing an arch of showers and thunderstorms and some snow back up into the western Wyoming mountains. What we're going to see later today is a reformation of showers and thunderstorms here and here that will then move off to the north and east. This is the precipitation forecast that takes us basically through Sunday. Most of this rain that you see right here is going to be over the next 48 hours or so. So you can see North Dakota, central and eastern Montana, the northern counties of Wyoming, those northern areas getting it again. We've got a little bit of rain along the Wasatch Front and some snow up there. The Pacific Northwest continues to get wet. We will see a little bit of shower and thunderstorm activity here late morning and early afternoon in that axis right there. And if we look at the severe weather risk, you'll see where that's really going to be. This is the lightning potential here by noon today. So later on this morning and early afternoon, we'll start to see some showers and thunderstorms developing. And then they're going to blow up by afternoon into a line of thunderstorms, some of which are going to be severe here into the northern areas of South Dakota, Minnesota, parts of North Dakota, eastern Nebraska, parts of central and southwest Kansas, then across Texas again. And you can see there's a very high risk right here of hail, heavy rain, tornado activity, right there through the northern plain states. Wind, yep, we talked about the wind. These are the wind gusts that we're going to see over the next 24 hours. So you see this orange and yellow stripe right along Interstate 80, parts of northern Colorado, southern Wyoming. We're going to see, again, some strong winds and some strong winds as the low intensifies up here as well. The good news is that by the weekend and into early next week, I don't see nearly as much wind. It won't go away, but I don't see nearly as much of it. By the weekend, we have this low up here in the Gulf of Alaska, and we have a little bit of a broad ridge developing over the Intermountain West. That's going to bring high pressure. That's going to bring the warmer temperatures this weekend into early next week. As we showed you yesterday, there's little tiny ripples, little lows that are going to be in the flow right here that are going to migrate west to east across the central and western United States next week. That's going to lead to some afternoon and evening thunderstorms. But it's going to warm things up. These are the temperature anomalies, nice and warm here for Monday. These are the temperatures as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Now let's look at the thunderstorm chances. Now for Monday afternoon, you can see the potential for showers and thunderstorms over quite a few areas here. That's Monday, and this is by Tuesday. So we're going to see some shower and thunderstorm activity, again, favoring areas east of the divide, a little bit west of the divide here, but not a lot. Now, as we go out looking further, this is by Thursday afternoon. By next Thursday afternoon, we're going to see that Gulf of Alaska low swing through and then drag what looks to be a pretty good-looking cold front. Good-looking meaning that there's going to be a fair amount of cool air and moisture associated with it. And as it swings through and moves to the southeast, we might, by Thursday night, Friday, and into Saturday, have some better opportunities right here for some shower and thunderstorm activity getting further south into Colorado, Kansas, maybe northern New Mexico. So we're going to hope that this comes to fruition and bring badly needed rain to the southern areas. The northern areas will again get some rain as well. But I do see the system bringing potential for the rain to get further south along I-80 and I-70. Also, taking a look at the planting progress, right now, the planting progress of corn and soybeans across the United States is way behind average. 22% of the corn is in the ground for the U.S. The average for this state is closer to 50%. And a lot of that has to do with the cool, wet conditions that have been happening this spring in this area right here. So planting is behind. Now, they've had a really warm stretch of weather here in the Corn Belt and Midwest this week, and will be again today and tomorrow. But things are behind in terms of getting things into the ground. Now, I do want to talk about what's going on with the drought situation and La Nina that's been going on right now. We talk about La Nina all the time in this podcast. There's a couple things I want to show you. There's one thing we haven't really talked about, and that's the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, where when you take a look at Pacific cycles, there's a 20 to 30-year cycle called the PDO, which basically means the Pacific goes through warm periods and cold periods. Interdispersed in those warm and cold periods are your typical La Ninas and El Ninos. But if you were to graph these cycles, you definitely notice this 20 or 30-year cycle showing on up. A positive PDO is when you have more El Ninos. A negative PDO is when you have more La Ninas. Notice, since 1998, we have had much more La Nina activity compared to the late 70s through the late 90s, which we had a lot more El Ninos. And when that happens, you have less drought. And that's really the case. From the late 70s through the late 90s, the western United States had drought, but the periods of drought were not as intense. Since the late 90s to where we are now, as we know with the western water situation and the drought conditions, we've just had a lot more La Ninas, and they go through these cycles, so you get into more drought. Now let's put this together. Let's go back all the way to the early 50s. I want you to notice these lines right here. In the 1950s, 14 La Ninas, 6 El Ninos. The 50s into the 60s, but especially the 50s, was a droughty period. There were several severe droughts and some dry conditions in the West, especially in the 50s. Then we got into the mid-70s to the late 90s. 4 La Ninas, but 11 El Ninos. Remember, El Ninos are more wet for the West. Now, the most recent period, we've had 13 La Ninas and only 4 El Nino winters. So if you want to know why, in the long term, since the late 90s to where we are now, the West has definitely been more droughty, definitely has been more dry, leading to a lot of problems. But it's also a cyclical period. So right now, we're about 23 years into this cold PDO cycle. They can go as long as 30 years, sometimes shorter. But we will likely cycle into something like this in the future, whether it's the next 5 years or the next 4, we'll see. But this persistent La Nina pattern, where the La Ninas are more frequent, is definitely a problem in the western United States. Have yourself a really good Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.